up the headphones a little bit? ISO. Let's get it.
Whoa, clear out the room, I'm coming through. They wanna see what I'm about. Yeah, I got skills, do it for the thrill. I'm on a paper route.
Whoa, what's going on? It's your boy Dolo J, and welcome to the Kicking the Dolo podcast, a sports podcast where we talk about football and basketball, past, present, and future, top 5, top 10 stats, and more. So without further ado, let's get right back into it. All right, I'm coming to y'all today with NFL Weekly Episode 5. Hopefully this will be my YouTube debut. I've been grinding lately, just trying to, get my money up and buy some more stuff for the podcast and, just trying to switch it up. I know I've been doing only audio since March when I first started, but ever since I hit 1,000 plays, I tried to think of the next step that I could take and bring y'all some visuals and letting y'all see me interact and, as I say what I say and do what I do. I feel like that would be, something cool and something to do. So, this is to the first 1,000 plays. Hopefully we have millions and millions of plays to come. So we're going to get right into the episode, man. The first game we're going to talk about is the 49ers versus the Arizona Cardinals. 38-10. Jimmy G, 20 of 29 for 228 yards and 4 touchdowns. Elijah Mitchell had 9 carries for 59 yards. McCaffrey, 7 carries for 39 yards. Deebo Samuel, 3 carries for 37 yards. Kittle, he had 4 receptions for 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. McCaffrey, 7 receptions for 67 yards. Deebo has 7 receptions for 57 yards. And Brandon Ayuk, 2 receptions for 20 yards and 2 touchdowns. So basically in this game, 49ers offense was just doing whatever they wanted to do. I believe they had a total of maybe 6 or 7 different people run the football, including Jimmy G. And when you have a team where you can do that, even though it probably wasn't a design run, it probably was like a scramble. Jimmy G couldn't find anything, and then he just ultimately just passed the line of scrimmage and decided to get whatever yards he could out of it, things of that nature. But the 49ers, ever since acquiring Christian McCaffrey, have basically been a totally different team. Yes, they've been good. And yes, they've had some bright spots, but ever since picking up Christian McCaffrey, it's like the team is gelling and the team is, really coming together. And it's a possibility that they can make a deep playoff push if they continue to play in the manner that they're playing, But, McCaffrey, his very first touchdown, I believe, with the 49ers was a passing touchdown. I can't really remember. I think it was to Brandon Ayuk. I want to say it was to Brandon Ayuk. But he had got a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown and a receiver touchdown. I think either in his first game or within his first 2 games. So it's pretty cool to see the type of, everybody knows what type of player Christian McCaffrey is. Also what type of coach Kyle Shanahan is. So when he acquired a player like that, that, McCaffrey's going to be put in different types of spots. And basically just, what's the word I'm looking for? A Swiss Army knife. Do a little bit of everything, and it's real cool to see, Christian McCaffrey on the team, given the fact that he gave, he's been in Carolina since he's been drafted. It's cool to see him on a possible playoff team. It's going to be real interesting to see what he could do in the playoffs if the 49ers make it to the playoffs. All right, but Colt McCoy, he ended up starting for the injured Kyler Murray. He went 24 of 34 for 214 yards, 1 interception. Trevor McSorley went 6 of 10 for 59 yards, 1 interception. James Conner went for 14 carries, 42 yards, 1 touchdown. Greg Dortch, 9 receptions for 103 yards. D-Hop, 9 receptions for 91 yards. AJ Green, 5 receptions for 50 yards. So this game basically for the Arizona Cardinals, man, it was a very abysmal game offensively and, and really defensively, just really both sides of the ball. They really couldn't generate much points, only putting up 10 points while allowing the 49ers to put up 38 points. So that's just a testament of your offense not being able to move the football and also that your defense is not getting stops on third down. So it's been a real bad season. They had the comeback victory week 2 against the Raiders, but ever since then, I've hardly seen, when I've been paying attention to the Cardinals, I've hardly seen them squeak out a victory or get another victory. They might be they might have won 2, maybe 3 games on the season. But ultimately, they're not where they want to be, given the fact. Also, and their starting quarterback is out. But, you can still win a game with your backup quarterback. But, you just have to be very run-heavy. Connor had 14 carries, which is pretty good, but he only got 42 yards out of it. So, it's not the best thing, All right, the next game we're going to move on and talk about is the Dallas Cowboys versus the Minnesota Vikings. Dak Prescott went 22 of 25 for 276 yards, 2 touchdowns. Cooper Rush made an appearance, 4 out of 5 for 31 yards. Pollard had a big game. 15 carries for 80 yards. Also 6 receptions for 109 yards and 2 touchdowns. Zeke, he had 15 carries for 42 yards and 2 touchdowns. And CeeDee Lamb had 45 yards off 5 receptions. The score ended up being 40-3. Now, I did not expect the Minnesota Vikings, given the fact that the previous week that it came off beating the Buffalo Bills in what was a stellar overtime game, I did not expect them to come out and only put up 3 points. Maybe 21, 14, 17. And also, the way the defense has been playing lately, yeah, they gave up 30 last week. But everybody expect the Buffalo Bills to put up at least, 28 points a game. But to give up 40 to the Dallas Cowboys is unacceptable. Unacceptable. But Cowboys, they just basically did whatever they wanted to do. To make it long, to condense it all the way down, and, I'm not going to really get into it too much. They just did whatever they wanted to do. When they wanted to run the ball, they ran the ball. When they wanted to pass the ball, they passed the ball. And it was positive plays. The defense really couldn't stop them for the most part. Kirk Cousins with 12 of 23 for 105 yards. Mullins with 5 of 7 for 54 yards. Dalvin Cook had 11 carries for 72 yards. And the newly acquired TJ Hockenson from the Detroit Lions had 5 receptions for 34 yards. So, like I was just saying earlier, the Vikings, hopefully they can bounce back. I mean, it's only their second loss of the season. So, it's not really too bad, but at the same time, it's the manner in which they lost. It's a lot of stuff they have to clean up, but sheesh, 40-3, I would have been mad after that game for sure. All right, so another game we're going to talk about basically was another stellar game that I believe ended in overtime, if I'm not mistaken. It's going to be the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Cincinnati Bengals ultimately picked up the victory 37-30. Joe Burrow with 24 of 39 for 355 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. P. Ryan went for 11 carries, 30 yards, 4 receptions for 52 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he had a nice day receiving as far as like touchdown to reception ratio. Joe Mixon had 7 carries for 20 yards. Higgins, he had 9 receptions for 148 yards. Tyler Boyd, 2 receptions for 42 yards. So, for the best of my understanding, when I watched the highlights, the Pittsburgh Steelers was up in this game, and Joe Burrow does what Joe Burrow does, basically. And, he leads the team on a comeback. Now, you would like for your team to, basically not, excuse me, I had to get a little drink right there. It wasn't even nothing in that cup. But you just want your team to ultimately, when they get a lead, hold on to the lead. But, a lot of times, Joe Burrow and them have been playing from behind this season. I mean, they squeaked out a few victories and, a couple of times they fell short. But, this is, again, in a divisional game, this is something you'd like to see, adversity, seeing your quarterback down and being able to bring your team back. 4 touchdowns. Now, he was picked off twice. And I want to believe those interceptions were earlier on in the game. But, close to crunch time, he picked it up. But, Steelers, man, I knew this would be a season that they would kind of struggle a little bit, given the fact that they just possibly drafted their franchise quarterback and they didn't start Pickett right out the gate. I mean, it's the same, throwing them to the wolves, but yeah, I feel like Pickett should have started from day one. Granted, their record may not have been any better than what it is currently, but just go ahead and get that season of starting under his belt. That's ultimately what you drafted him at the number 20 spot for. But he went 25 and 42 for 265 yards and 1 touchdown. Najee Harris went for 20 carries, 90 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He also had 4 receptions for 26 yards. George Pickens had 4 receptions for 93 yards and a touchdown. And Freiermuth had 8 receptions for 79 yards. So like I said, it was a good game. The Steelers, they were doing their thing. And, basically, I wouldn't say they ultimately had the game put away. But, if they just would have made a couple more plays and got some more stops, then they could have won this game for sure. Now, it's heartbreaking. It's been a couple games this season where, they've been in games and they just haven't been able to close them out. And I would rather be in the game and have a chance to win than be blown out. Because blown out means it's just not your day. It's terrible. I wouldn't say no matter what you try to do, it doesn't work. But a lot of stuff And your ultimate end goal, you're not reaching your end goal, which is to put up points and stop the other team from putting up points. So, 37-30, Cincinnati. It's going to be real interesting to see if, the Bengals can do something similar to what they did last season, which was, gain a wild card spot, sneak in, and ultimately try and make the Super Bowl. All right, so the next game we're going to talk about is the Kansas City Chiefs with their comeback victory against the Los Angeles Chargers, 30-27. Mahomes, 20 of 34 for 329 yards, 3 touchdowns. Also had 4 carries for 23 yards. Pacheco, 15 carries for 107 yards. Travis Kelce had a big game, as usual. 6 receptions for 115 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Watson also had 3 receptions for 67 yards. I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and I made this point. It just seems like every time the game is close, Kansas City just ends up winning the game. I know that's not always true. I know some games that, they do lose. Like, they did lose to Indianapolis, letting them go down the field, I want to say, on the final drive of the game and winning. Or I think they probably stopped them and got an interception to end Kansas City final chance to either tie the game or take the lead or whatever. But for the most part, Kansas City usually always come back and wins, bro. They usually always come back and win. And it's just another thing. But that's just a testament to the game, to the coaching, the players, the late game execution, all that type of stuff. It's just, and this is the second game they played. Now, they also had a Thursday night game, I want to say maybe about a month ago, I want to say. A month ago, they had like a Thursday night game, and it was the same position. The Chargers were winning, and, they were doing what they were supposed to do, moving the ball, and then just like the fourth quarter came, and it's just like they became obsolete. Like, they didn't know what they were supposed to be doing. They only put up, I think 10 points in the second half in total. I want to say they only put up 10 points in the second half in total. Now, they had a chance. They went down and retook the lead after Kansas City took the lead, but you can't leave Patrick Mahomes anytime. You can't leave Patrick Mahomes anytime. And then Pacheco, their rookie, I believe I'm saying this right. Is it Pacheco? Yeah, I believe that's how you pronounce it. But I like him. I like him as their running back behind Edwards-Helaire and also mixing in McKinnon. I like that because he's a hard runner. He's a short, stocky guy, but he's a powerful guy. He loves to push the pile, and he'll carry defenders on him. And if you give Kansas City, not saying a consistent, I wouldn't even say a consistent 100-yard rusher, but like a borderline 100-yard rusher, he manages anywhere from 80 to 100 yards. You're not going to beat them because that was our only offensive weakness. Now, the defense still leaves a lot to be desired, but at the same time, when you put up Patrick Mahomes and them puts up points, for sure. It doesn't matter really who's out there. They're going to put up points. Now, you want your defense to ultimately, stop the other team, stop the opposing team's offense so that way you don't have to put up 28, points every game to come out with a victory or 30 points every game. Even though you probably can put up 30 points, you don't want to do that. But it was real good. It's real cool. Herbert, he went 23 of 30 for 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Austin Eckler had 19 carries for 83 yards and 1 touchdown. Palmer, he had 8 receptions for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Keenan Allen, a receiver that I like to watch, had 5 receptions for 94 yards. Now, I believe Allen was coming off a hamstring injury. Now, I don't know if he returned last game or this game. But it was real interesting to see towards the end, like I said, when the Chargers came back and take the lead right before Kansas City came down. Keenan Allen made a very huge big-time play. And, when Justin Herbert, when the game's on the line and the game is close and you need a big play, he's going to either go to Palmer, Mike Williams, or Keenan Allen. But Keenan Allen's always going to be the first one. And then, I think it's Palmer, and then I think he'll find Mike Williams. I believe, even though I think Mike Williams might be a better, target, Palmer's just more reliable. You know what they say about tight ends, quarterback's best friend. When in doubt, throw it to your tight end or your running back. Check down. Easy route. And then they're already big bodies, and they're usually lined up on a linebacker or something like that. So, yeah, but it was a good game. I didn't get to watch the entirety of the game. I caught that the second half, given the fact that, the time I get off work at 10 o'clock at night. So, I didn't really get to watch the full game of it. But the second half was pretty good. A lot of turnover. I won't say a lot of turnovers, but just hard football. The Chargers fumbled, then they come back down and force a fumble. You know, back and forth, a lot of back and forth. And that's what you're going to get out of divisional games, man. So Kansas City beats the Chargers twice this season. It looks like Kansas City is going to ultimately end up winning the division. The Raiders aren't looking too good. The Broncos aren't looking too good. The Chargers was probably my best bet to even give Kansas City a run for their money, but Kansas City's already beaten them twice. So, yeah. So, hopefully the Chargers can still come back and possibly squeak out maybe a wild card spot, because it's a lot of good teams in the AFC. There's a lot of good teams and a lot of teams jockeying for position. The AFC East is wild. I believe the Jets or even the Dolphins are first place in that. But the AFC is just going to be real interesting to see what's going on. So the very next game we're going to go to is the Philadelphia Eagles. We're one drive away from losing 2 straight games. Now, we already know last week that on Monday Night Football, they lost to the Commanders. And given the fact that that was a divisional game, like I said, I believe you play every game, you want to play hard. But I believe divisional games just have a little more, off into it. And I wouldn't say disdain or nothing like that, but it's just a little bit more oomph. Like, you're a little bit more ready to, do your thing and, hit the other team and take the ball away, get stops and stuff like that. Because it's a divisional game. You play teams twice a season. So I can understand why the Commanders came out and played the type of football they played. And they were in the game the whole time. So they was like, well, they're undefeated, but we still in the game. So we still have a chance to win. We still have a chance to win. Any given Sunday, last case, it was Monday night. But like I said, the Eagles, they're still the top team in the NFL, in my opinion. I don't believe, there's really a team I could put above them. Now, there's teams right up there that may be right up there with them, possibly the Vikings, but the Vikings just lost. But Eagles are still, I wouldn't say head and shoulders above the rest, but they're still the number 1 team in the NFL. But the Colts took them down to the wire. Philly ultimately ended up pulling out the victory, 17-16. Jalen Hurts went 18 of 25 for 190 yards, 1 touchdown. He also had 16 carries for 86 yards and the game-winning rushing touchdown. Miles Sanders had 13 carries for 47 yards. Devontae Smith had 5 receptions for 60 yards. Quez Watkins had 2 receptions for 31 yards. So Indy, not the season they expected to have. I'm pretty sure they were in a lot of games. Now, a couple games they just got blown out, but I could see Indy having maybe 2, maybe 3 more wins under their belt. The Eagles, they've been playing some close games. When the playoffs come, you're gonna need to show that you're gonna need experience like this. Nip and tuck games where you have to go down 14, down 21. Okay, you get the ball last. You got to drive down the field, score a touchdown to win, and stuff like that. You want your team to go through games like that throughout the course of a season, just to give them, the fortitude and also letting the rookies know what to do when the situation comes. So the playoffs, like I said, the Eagles are the top team at the same time. Now, just because they're the top team right now through 10 games or whatever it's been, doesn't mean they're going to finish the season as the top team. There's still 7 more. There's still, 7 more games to be played? Yeah, still 7 more games to be played. The fact, I'm still getting, even though they did a whole season of 17 games, I'm still trying to get used to it because I'm so used to saying 16 games. But, yeah. So they still got 7 more games to play. And, I'm not saying that they could go on a losing streak and, just fall out. But they're in a tough division. The Giants are playing good this season. The Cowboys are playing good this season. So the Eagles, really their own division is really keeping them above the rest of the NFL, given the fact that it's a possibility that the NFC East could maybe have 3 teams come out of there. It's a possibility. Real possibility. But Matt Ryan, he went 23 of 32 for 213 yards. Jonathan Taylor had 22 carries for 84 yards and 1 touchdown. And Michael Pittman Jr., 6 receptions for 75 yards. The Colts, man, acquired Matt Ryan in the offseason. I think they feel like Matt Ryan could have possibly, put them in a chance to basically make the playoffs. I know this season hasn't been the best season for the Colts. Jonathan Taylor had dealt with some injuries and, Offensive line, not really like the best thing, but yeah, I really feel like the Colts could have had a better season than what they're having now. Now they've been in some games, like I said, they beat the Chiefs. Matt Ryan let them down on the game-winning drive to beat the Chiefs, and then also, you know, the Eagles. They almost beat the Eagles, but they let the Eagles come down. So it's not like the Colts are a bad football team. I don't know. They probably just play to the type of competition that they're playing to. I would say that because it's just like the lower level teams that you know, or teams that you think they're better than, they don't really beat them. And then they play teams you be like, oh, this is a good team. They might thrash them. They come out and, you know, it's a nip-tuck ball game. So I don't know. I don't really get the Colts. They're kind of confusing a little bit, but ultimately they can still probably clean it up. Like I said, it's 7 games left. I don't think no team is mathematically out, except for if you only won like 3 games maybe, but it's going to be real hard. And I don't think this was the type of season that the Colts expected to have. Given the fact, like I said, they got Matt Ryan and, you know, Jonathan Taylor is one of the best backs in the league if you ask me. And I didn't know that they did not keep T.Y. Hilton. I thought T.Y. Hilton was still on. I feel like that's a huge hit, bro. A huge hit to their receiving core. But Colts, man, the Colts. All right, so another game we're going to talk about is going to be the New Orleans Saints versus the Los Angeles Rams. I believe Matthew Stafford got injured in this game. He went 11 of 18 in his time in the game for 159 yards and 2 touchdowns. Perkins went 5 of 10 for 64 yards. Cam Akers went for 14 carries and 61 yards, and Trevor Atwell had 1 reception for 62 yards and 1 touchdown. All right, so the Rams, given the fact that they're coming off the Super Bowl, I mean, there is this thing where the team who wins the Super Bowl hardly ever, I ain't gonna say hardly ever, but it's a real good chance that they go on and miss the playoffs the next season, or they don't make it back to the Super Bowl the next season. You know they call the championship, what is it called? The championship hangover or drag or whatever. Usually lasts the season, you know. They're, you know, usually amped up about winning the championship and think, oh, yeah, we're going to do it all over again. And they usually come out the next season and I wouldn't say be abysmal, but usually be middle of the pack. And the Rams, I know their fans are upset given the fact that we just won the Super Bowl. And it's just like everything is falling apart. Odell's probably not going to come back. Stafford's injured. They tried to pick up Robertson. I mean, he's had some decent games, but not too much of a Odell effect. Cooper Kupp is also injured. That also has a lot to do with the Rams' struggles. I mean, putting up 20 points and almost winning this game without Cooper Kupp is really special, but it's the Rams, man. The Rams. It's just really hard. Really hard. But the Saints. Andy Dalton, 21 of 25 for 260 yards, 3 touchdowns. Taysom Hill, 1 of 3 for 14 yards, 9 carries for 52 yards. Alvin Kamara, 12 carries for 42 yards. Chris Olave, 5 receptions for 102 yards and 1 touchdown. Johnson, 3 receptions for 47 yards and 1 touchdown. And Jarvis Landry, 3 receptions for 33 yards and 1 touchdown. So, the Saints ultimately, it was a good game. The Saints ultimately end up pulling out a victory. It hasn't been the type of season that you expect from the Saints. Jameis Winston dealing with back problems, back injury. I think a spinal injury, was it L2 to L4 or L5 or something like that. I don't know if he's still going through that, but, Andy Dalton is the starter. And the Saints are a really good football team, in my opinion. They're structured really well. The defense is pretty good. The offense, it's just they need their starting quarterback. Now, Jameis is a good quarterback, and Andy Dalton, he's a good comparable backup, possible / starter. He did start for the Bengals for like 9 seasons, if I'm not mistaken. Something like that. 8, 9, 7 seasons. But he's a good competent quarterback, seriously. And Altuve out of Ohio State, I really like Altuve. I want to say this is his second straight game going over 100 yards. But it's just like the game is coming real easily for him. And then he's out there with Landry and, just some other good receivers. So the field is opening up for him. But I feel like Altuve is going to become their top receiver soon. But the Saints ultimately pulled out a 7-point victory against the Rams. All right, so the last game we're going to talk about on the episode is going to be the Atlanta Falcons versus the Chicago Bears. Now, the Falcons end up winning the game 27-24. Justin Fields, he went 14 of 21 for 153 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He also had 18 carries for 85 yards and 1 touchdown. David Montgomery, 17 carries for 67 yards and 1 touchdown. He also had 3 receptions for 54 yards. Mooney had 4 receptions for 29 yards, and 1 touchdown. So it was a very good game. Atlanta ultimately ended up going down, and their kicker ended up Koo. He ended up kicking the game-winning field goal to put them ahead. Marcus Mariota, he went 13 of 20 for 131 yards, 1 touchdown. He also had 13 carries for 25 yards and 1 touchdown. Algier. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He had 8 carries for 55 yards. And Pitts, I think he ended up ultimately exiting with a knee injury. He had 3 receptions for 43 yards. And Drake London, their rookie from USC, had 1 reception for 2 yards and a touchdown. So the Falcons, like I said, are pleasantly surprised. Now, they're in the fight. They're not leading the division, I don't think. I think they might be right under Tampa Bay or something. But it's real cool and really exciting to see the fact that they're even still having a chance to possibly win the division and also a chance to actually make the playoffs. Now, the Falcons, they basically got rid of everybody, let Matt Ryan go. Well, they traded Matt Ryan and, basically they're on a full rebuild. But Marcus Mariota has been doing his thing. Now, I'm a personal Marcus Mariota fan, given the fact that he went to Oregon. And Oregon is my favorite college, so I root for Oregon guys when I see an Oregon guy. So Mariota doing this thing is pretty cool. And I also live in Georgia. I live in Augusta, so, I'm not going to say seeing the Falcons do well is nice. I mean, it is cool to see, the Falcons do good, given the fact of what happened in the Super Bowl and stuff like that. But I'm a Bills fan, so Falcons, if they win, they win. They don't, they don't. I ain't really too much keeping up with the fact of whether or not they win. I know a lot of my friends and co-workers and stuff are Falcons fans, but me, nah. But I stay in Georgia, so usually, if the Falcons game is on, I will cut it on if I can't watch the Bills and stuff like that. But it's really interesting to see the type of season that they have. Like I said, given the fact that they are rebuilding. They drafted Desmond Ridder. They drafted Drake London. They still have Kyle Pitts. I don't know what's really too much going on with Calvin Ridley. I haven't heard a lot about him. He might have been either released, let go, or traded or something of that nature. But yeah, it's real cool to see what the Falcons are doing. And then the Chicago Bears. Justin Fields, he's still get acclimated. It might take him a couple more years before, he takes the step that everybody wants to see him take or expected him to take. But I've also seen the Chicago Bears give him more design runs, and he's very good. Like I said, 18 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown. More design runs instead of him just having to make something happen off of a pass, Now, my thing is, with running quarterbacks, okay, you have to, and I say this about even Josh Allen when we read Josh Allen as the Buffalo Bills. It's good. It makes it keeps the defense honest because now you have to guard, everybody. But at the same time, do it to where you don't put your quarterback in harm's way and don't have him put himself in harm's way. Justin Fields, I don't mind him rushing the ball. 18 carries. I mean, if that's what it takes to win the game, sometimes you have to rush the ball. Your quarterback has to carry the ball 18 times to win the game. But it's just he's so fluid and seamlessly. It's like he's moving through water, basically, like a fish moving through water when he just runs the ball, and how like easily it looks. So going forward, I definitely see that becoming a part of the game plan for the Chicago Bears. But at the same time, you know, once Justin Fields, they need to bulk the offensive line. They need an offensive line. Okay, that man has been getting sacked and hit harder than probably any other quarterback I've probably been paying attention to. Him and probably Joe Burrow are probably like the two quarterbacks, and Carson Wentz. Oh my goodness. But yeah, them three, they get sacked more than everybody else. So you're gonna need to boost the offensive line. The weapons you could upgrade, probably give them maybe one weapon. Now they got Claypool from the Pittsburgh Steelers, so that's pretty nice. But the offensive line, and once you bolster the offensive line, get the defense right, and Justin Fields take that next step as a passer, the Bears are going to be a pretty good team and a team to be reckoning with, man. A team to be reckoning with. So it's going to be real interesting to see how it plays out. Let's see how Atlanta goes against Tampa Bay, how they do against Tampa Bay, and let's see if they could, you know, if not win the division, let's see if they make a wild card spot. And I'm not going to say Atlanta's a sleeper team by any means, because I don't have them, you know, really going deep in the playoffs that they do. I have them exiting possibly in the wild card round maybe, but let's see. Tampa Bay hasn't been looking the way we expect Tampa Bay to look either. So time going through, receiving injuries, things of that nature. The defense not being what it used to be. So yeah, it's gonna be real interesting to see what they're doing. But this has been the Kicking It Dolo podcast, man. Hopefully, you know, this will be my YouTube debut. I really appreciate y'all checking in and stuff like that. And hopefully, you know, there's many more to come. So until next time, tap in or miss out. Peace.